Hello, my name is Matt, and I'm going to tell you a story called Deaf Flower. Okay, so what happened? Well, a man, he was living off of SSI, and he was struggling to make ends meet. And one month, he couldn't afford rent, and he was freaking out. And he was like, oh, what should I do? So he decided maybe I should go to the store, buy some flowers, just kind of help. So he goes to the store and he asks the man, he says, do you have any flowers? And the man says, well, it's kind of a hard time, it's kind of a bad season for flowers. He says, but I do have 3 flowers in the back. He says, do you want to see them? And the man says, oh, really? Yeah, sure, of course. So they go and look, and he says, well, how much are they? He says, they're $1 each. The man says, I'll take them. So he pays for them, and he takes them home. And he begins setting everything up. He makes sure that the lights are all correct and directly on each flower. Then he measures the water to make sure that they all have an equal amount. And he double checks everything. He says, okay. He says, they look perfect. They should be beautiful. So then the man, he's starting to feel tired. And he says, I'm going to go take a nap. So he goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, the first thing he thinks about is those flowers, and he's wondering, gee, I wonder what they look like, and he runs to go check on them, and he's dumbfounded. He looks, and the first flower, oh, it's beautiful. It has a radiant color and everything. The third flower is the same as the first, just beautiful. But the second flower, it's dead. It looks old. It's wilted. He's like, how can I fix this? So then he decides, okay, the first and second flowers, I'm going to switch. Maybe it's the lighting or whatever. So he switches them, and he checks the lighting again, and he waters them again, and he decides to go to sleep. So the next day he wakes up, and he runs out to check the flowers. And he looks, and now the first flower, which remember originally was the second flower, is beautiful. He's like, yes, I fixed it. And then he looks at the middle flower, which originally was the first flower, and it looks dead. It's wilted, the color's gone. The third flower, it's still beautiful. And he's like, God, what is going on? He goes, okay, well, we'll try switching the second flower and the third flower. So he switches them, checks the lights again, measures the water, everything looks perfect. So he goes to take a nap. He wakes up, and he's like, okay, he's like, let's go see how the flowers look. And his friend had stopped by, and he said, well, come on. He's like, I want to see your flowers. So he says, okay. He says, come on in. He's like, come see the flowers. He goes and looks, and he goes, what? Again, the middle flower. It just keeps dying. It just keeps wilting and looking sick. I don't understand. So he goes, you know what? I'm going to go talk to the guy at the flower shop and see what's going on. So he goes to the flower shop, and he asks the man, he says, listen, this middle flower keeps dying. What am I doing wrong? How do I fix it? And the flower guy says, well, is it okay if I come over and look later? And he says, yeah, sure, that's fine. So he goes home, and a little bit later, the flower man shows up, comes in and looks, and he says, you know what your problem is? He said, the flowers are deaf. He says, the middle flower constantly has to keep turning itself to look to see what the other flowers are saying. He says, what you need to do, he said, is put them so they can all see each other. And the guy goes, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, that's how it works. So the guy moves them so they're in a triangular shape, and he checks the lighting and everything like that, goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, all 3 of them are just perfect, beautiful, radiant colors, just gorgeous. So, for future reference, if you have deaf flowers, make sure you keep them all in a circle so they can communicate with each other.